Hello and welcome to Mr. Davis's classroom. This is Algebra 1 and today we're going over the second half of Lesson 8.5. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about factoring x squared plus bx plus c. So we did like 3 examples last time and we're going to do a couple more today. So first one is we're going to apply this to something that we've dealt with for a few years now, which is geometry and area. So here we have a rectangle and it has a given area. Now the only difference is, instead of the area being like 20 or 42 or something like that, it is x squared minus 2x minus 35. That is the area. In this problem, they're wanting to know, what are my possible dimensions? Well, I know that area problems are found by the formula area equals length times width. So we have a multiplication, right? That's a multiplication problem, or we think that as being factored. So if this is my area, I need to find the factored form. Okay? So that's what we're going to do right now. And other than applying this to geometry, we've already learned how to factor that. We're just going to apply it to geometry now. So let's do that with first getting my x. All right, I'm going to factor my x, bring down my -2, and let's remember that we want to add to get the -2. And on the bottom, we're going to put -35, and that's the one that we need to multiply to get. So now we need to think about two numbers that multiply to get -35 and add to get -2. Now, this is going to be one positive number and one negative number because the multiplication part is negative. And the negative number is going to be only slightly bigger, only bigger by 2. Okay? So I need to think about numbers that multiply to get 35 that are 2 apart. All right? Well, 1 and 35 are obviously not 2 apart. 2 doesn't go into 35, 3 doesn't go into 35, 4 doesn't go into 35, but 5 does. 5 and 7 go into 35. Good news is those are two apart. Now I just need to figure out which one's negative, which one's positive. Well, I want their sum, right? When I add them, I want the sum to be negative right there at -2, which tells me the larger of these two is going to be the negative one. Okay. Now, last thing what we need to do is break these apart into my factored form. I need to split apart my x's, and I need to bring down my two numbers, including the positive or negative sign that belongs with it. Now, those are my two dimensions. Now all I want to do is I want to relate this to my rectangle. Okay? So let me erase these question marks because I no longer have question marks about this. I know that they're going to be x plus 5 and x minus 7. So looking at the picture I have now, we need to decide which one is going to be the length or the long side and which one's going to be the width or the shorter side. Well, out of these two, I'm guessing that the one that's adding a number is going to be larger than the one that's subtracting a number. Okay, and I'm going to put parentheses around those. Those are our two dimensions for this rectangle. All right. Here's one for you to try. All right, make sure that you use factoring and then label which one's length, which one would be width. Okay, here's a trinomial that has 2 variables in it. It has both x's and y's, which looks a lot more confusing, but really it's not. Now, I think the easiest way to kind of show this one is to show the factored form first, and then we'll get our numbers to be put in later. So there's my factors. I know I'm going to break apart my x's, right? My first x's. That's been something that's been constant this whole time. Now the only difference is now that I have a variable that's squared in the back, that y squared, I'm going to split apart the y's in the back. I'm still going to have some number in front of those y's, but I'm going to split apart those y's. Okay? So let me clean that apart a little bit. And those numbers that we're going to put in front of the y's, we are going to find the exact same way. Make my x, I'm going to have a positive 6, and remember that's add. And on the bottom I have negative 55, and that's multiply. So I need two numbers that multiply to get 55, add to get 6. And I think if we do a little bit of thinking, we'll see that 55, not a lot goes into it, but I know 5 does. 5 goes into 55 11 times. Okay. Now, since it's a negative 55, I know one of these two, 5 or 11, has to be negative. I also know that when I add them, it has to equal a positive number. So if it has to equal a positive number, I know that the larger of these two has to be positive. So that means that 11 has to be the positive, 5 has to be the negative. Now, if I plug those in, it is factored. Voila. Looks a lot more complicated because of the extra variables, but really that didn't change anything for us except for we had to split apart that variable as well, right? We had to split apart two variables here. Okay, here's one for you to try. Make sure that you pause and do this one before moving forward. And that's the whole lesson. This is your homework assignment on page 504. Thank you for stopping by Mr. Davis' classroom. I hope you enjoyed.